Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where we ask the question of what should your technology department's org chart look like in the new age of AI and artificial intelligence. I think this is a curious thing, right? Having been in the tech field for almost 30 years now, remembering back in the days when people were trying to figure out essentially who should lead, technology development for companies. Back when CTOs and CIOs were rather a new thing, especially for small companies. You had the CEO, but then you started thinking about all of these other different roles. Should you have a CIO? Should you have a CTO? Should you have a CMO? All these different chief positions. And so it's been curious to see basically the creation of that and all of that kind of stuff stabilized. Beyond that, we get into about the 2010 timeframe where companies start deploying more of their own custom code into their environments. And that's when we get into the DevOps world, right? The developers are the ones that code, the operations are the old school IT folks. So they actually bring them in-house, right? So when I worked in the corporate world, my company had a large development division and it had a large operations division, and I had no contact with them. When I say I have no contact with them, I'm not saying they would hang up on me if I called. I literally had no telephone number to any of the people on the dev teams, right? We would just get some new Oracle app or whatever that we had to deploy, and we just prayed that the damn thing did what it was supposed to. And if it didn't, we put in a little work order, we put in a little ticket, and it vanished off to the never verse. And hopefully we got a solution at some point in the future, right? That's how it was 25 years ago, right? Then we get to DevOps. The idea with DevOps is the developers and the operations, they are on the same team so that they can communicate together. And that's kind of basically the idea here, is thinking about that with how does the org chart for your tech department change as we shift in these technology paradigms, right? Everybody wants to focus on AI. AI. You notice how rarely, when people are talking about AI, they actually talk about anything that matters? The architecture, right? We had Contextual AI. He was the CEO for one of our fireside chats for silicondojo.com, right? And his entire company, $100 million startup company, is all about RAG 2.0. How do you improve RAG? Right, when you're talking about AI, how many people are actually talking about things like RAG? How many people are actually talking about things like context engineering? How many people are talking about the stuff that makes AI work? And that's an important thing to consider, right? How do you actually add this to the workflow? It's not simply how do you get AI to spit out some type of response, but how do you add that into the workflow for your organization, for your team, so that it can be a replicatable experience? I think this is kind of curious to be thinking about with Meta, with Facebook, as we see that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't really seem to have a plan. Spoiler alert, Mark Zuckerberg might not know what the hell he's actually doing, right? It's interesting to look at this, especially after the disaster of the metaverse, right? Tens of billions of dollars went into the metaverse. We were told everybody was going to want to suction cup a TV to their head, and surprise, surprise, very few people actually want to suction cup a TV to their head. And so it is honestly been weird how Mark Zuckerberg has shifted so hard and so fast from the metaverse to AI. But the curious thing is he did this major shift and still basically doesn't seem to have a plan. Apparently, they want to be the leader in superintelligence. Why? I don't know. What's it going to get, Meta? I don't know. Where does the money come from? Underpants, I guess? I don't know. And so what's curious here is he's been spending lots and lots of money to get technology employees. And I don't know, I guess been throwing them into a room. He's collecting people and just kind of throwing them into the room. But then the question is how do you actually get them to do anything? Meta, from Bloomberg, Meta restructures AI group again in pursuit of superintelligence. So apparently the AI group, basically their AI department, has been reorganized a few times now in rather short order because, yeah, they're still trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do. They have a lot of money, and they've been told they have to figure out superintelligence. Beyond that, let's see here. Meta Platforms Inc. is splitting its newly formed AI, artificial intelligence group into 4 distinct teams and reassigning many of the company's existing AI employees, an attempt to better capitalize on billions of dollars worth of recently acquired talent. So apparently, Mark Zuckerberg literally hired one guy, we talked about him before, Mark or whatever, $200 million. One employee got a $200 million pay package. So when we talk about them dumping a lot of money on employees and things, yeah. The new structure is meant to, quote, accelerate the company's pursuit of so-called superintelligence, according to an internal memo sent Tuesday by Alexander Wang, the former Scale AI chief executive officer who recently joined Meta as a chief AI officer. Quote, superintelligence is coming. Yeah, it is interesting, right? Fireside chats. We had David Cox on. He's VP for AI models over at IBM. And I asked him about this whole thing, like artificial general intelligence. And I'm like, look, I'm just Eli the computer. I am just a moron who screams into a webcam. Can you kind of explain to me why I want my car to be able to recite Shakespearean poetry? He was like, yeah, I don't think anybody wants your car to recite Shakespearean poetry. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough, right? There is this interesting thing, like this hyper focus on superintelligence. And now it sounds cool. It sounds cool. What if a computer can outdo any human on anything? But one of the important things to consider here is its resources, right? Every function you give a system requires resources. So why are you going to dump just a tremendous number of functions onto these systems that are going to require additional massive numbers of resources if most of the time you need task-specific things? I need the AI to do this. I need it to fly a plane. I don't need my plane to understand how to drive a car. I just need it to know how to drive a plane. I don't need it to know how to drive a boat. I just need it to know how to drive a plane. One of the interesting things when you start looking at this, like with AGI as a push or super intelligence, like Mark Zuckerberg wants to push, is this whole idea. Yeah, but no, serious. Like, what is the actual value proposition? What are people actually buying? Superintelligence is coming, and in order to take it seriously, we need to organize around the key areas that will be critical to reach it: research, product, and infrastructure, Wang wrote in the memo. Wow. Research, product, infrastructure. Yeah. I would have thought you would have focused on that before now. But who am I to say? The group, known as Meta Superintelligence Labs, or MSL, will now have 4 parts. TBD Lab, led by Wang, which will oversee Meta's large language models, including the Llama tools that underpin its AI assistant. FAIR, an internal AI research lab that existed within the company for more than a decade. The team, whose name stands for Fundamental AI Research, is focused on longer-term projects. Product and Applied Research, a team led by former GitHub CEO Nat Friedman, which will take those models and research and put them into consumer products. MSL Infra, which will focus on expensive infrastructure needed to support Meta's AI ambitions, right? So that is an interesting thing to be thinking about, right? You think about deploying AI into your company. You're thinking about what does your IT department look like, running on that AI stack. And this is something to consider, right? So they have one division that's just focused on the large language models, so training large language models, that type of thing. You have another that's looking at like longer term projects, not what we can do now, but where could we be in 5 or 10 years? Actually putting the technology into products themselves, and then focusing on infrastructure, right? I think these are some things to consider. I was gonna do a video, probably will do a video soon, talking about the whole idea of like with vibe coding and infrastructure, right? There's this idea right now that tech jobs are gonna go away because of AI, especially vibe coding. And one of the things to think about is so many of these, like think about it, like the node developers don't seem to think servers exist or routing exists, right? The important thing is their JavaScript code. Nothing else is important. Well, imagine the node developers' mentality of how systems work, and then take somebody who isn't even there, right? They're vibe coding. One of the things to think about is how do you build infrastructure for a vibe coding world, right? There's a database system, was it back end as a service, I guess they call it, called Supabase. So Supabase basically takes Postgres, puts some stuff on top of it, and then is a back end as a service. Basically, you get Postgres database services through Supabase. The curious thing, though, is it's actually been designed in a way to make it more secure for vibe coding. Right, the idea of being, right, when you deal with relational databases, there's something called privileges, basically permissions to do things. There's privileges, there's a whole bunch of stuff that actually goes into that database system. So what if you configure everything in such a way to make it less likely somebody will do something asininely stupid, right? There was recently, I talked about the guy who was using Replit. He was using Replit, and he'd been working on this project for like 2 weeks, and the project interacted with a production database, and then he did something stupid, and literally Replit wiped his production database. And like one of my questions is why did Replit have the privilege to be able to wipe that database, right? Even if Replit completely assed itself up and tried to drop the tables or drop the database or whatever else, when it tried to run that command, the database server should have failed it out under security grounds, and therefore there wouldn't be a problem. But because this Yahoo doesn't know a fucking thing about databases or coding or anything else, basically he designed it to the point where a misstatement to Replit or a misunderstanding by Replit literally dropped his entire damn database. And so I think that's one of the curious things to be thinking about, right? When this AI world, and thinking about your place in the company and your place in the organization, considering how would you design your infrastructure for the AI stack? And then start bringing these ideas to your boss now, right? That's with, and listening to people, right? So we had David Cox, VP of AI models over at IBM. He was on, and we're talking about MCPs. And MCPs is the framework basically for creating AI agents. So AI agents allow AI to actually do tasks. And so one of the things that he was talking about is he thinks MCP is very good essentially for reports, right? So you ask AI a question about how your company is doing, and you get back that whole idea of a single pane of glass, you get back these reports. That MCP is really good for doing reports, but you wouldn't want to do it for inserts or updates. So inserts are when you add data to the database, updates are where you update a record in a database. And he's like, look, I mean, like if you're just asking a question and you're doing a select statement, you're pulling information out, then having an agent that uses an MCP to pull that out, worst case scenario, you're going to get a little bit of gibberish that you're not going to understand, but that's about it. On the other hand, right, if you have an AI agent that uses MCP, it misunderstands what you're saying, and it has the ability to update records. Right? You know, what if it decided to update every person's record whose age was over 1 with a particular last name or God knows what? Right? And so that's the kind of thing you need to be thinking about, like when you design your systems, and thinking about it not after the disaster has occurred, thinking about going to your boss now and saying, boss, I would like some extra time this week to be able to audit the privileges and fully understand the security environment our database server resides in. I'm going to document that so that we can start doing some limited projects with AI and MCP to see if we can start getting value out of it, right? Start doing those kinds of things. So anyways, one of those things to kind of consider. Meta is hoping to stabilize its AI efforts after months spent poaching dozens of top AI researchers from competitors with lofty pay packages, many reaching hundreds of millions in total compensation. CEO Mark Zuckerberg has said the company's goal is to achieve superintelligence, or AI technology that can complete tasks even better than humans, and he expects to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on the talent and infrastructure needed to get there. as I say, this is all a bubble. At this point, I'm not even being snarky about this being a bubble. I'm not being melodramatic about this being a bubble. This AI shit is just a fucking bubble, right? We just had Sam Altman talking about he wanted to spend trillions of dollars just on data centers, right? We have Mark Zuckerberg here saying he wants to spend hundreds of billions of dollars. These are literally just two of the players. You have Apple. Tim Cook literally came out and said that they needed to be the leader in the AI race. Why? I use a lot of Apple product. Why does Apple need to be the leader? I literally don't get it. So anyways, now they're dumping more and more money, and this is becoming a massive ass bubble. So if you are making a good paycheck right now in AI, make sure to put some money in your bank account. But Meta's AI leadership has faced several shakeups in the past few years, including multiple changes this year alone. And so that's one of the issues that they're running into is when you're trying to do all of this, how do you actually make the org chart work? I think one of the more interesting things with Meta, and something that you would need to be careful about too, is when you go out and you start hiring rock stars and ninjas, how well are they going to play together? Like, I think about this with bands. So my wife does music. She sings or whatever. Anyways, and like one of the interesting things when you look at bands and you look at music groups is you can only have one prima donna. You can only have one prima donna. Like, think about this. Like, we actually know a rock star. We know I am friends with a real rock star too. And I've seen the music videos. And I'm like, oh, I guess that is you, isn't it? Because there's the front people. The front people I fucking know. The front people, I know them, right? If I was walking down Denny Way in the middle of Seattle, I'd be like, oh my God, I know that. That's the lead singer for blah. But the thing is, our family friend is not the lead singer. Not the lead. Actually wrote the music. You wouldn't know. Anyway, again, you watch the music video and you're like, oh, yeah, I guess that is you. World famous rock star. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's you. Cool. Right? Why I bring that up is it is an interesting thing to be thinking about. Like with Meta, and a real concern here is what happens when your entire team is lead singers. Because that's the thing with like lead singers, like they want to be the face of the band. Like our friend does music stuff. He just goes into a room. He goes into a room that's probably about this size. He has a really cool computer setup. And he just tippy tap types. He does his own tippy tap typing all day. And he's just the funnest thing in the world. Right? Because that's what he likes to do. And then he goes out and does the music thing. Right? Anyways. Right? But front people, they want to be out there. This is our band. Rawr. Which is fine, right? So that's the thing is if you have the front person and then you have the supporting people, great. What if you had a band of lead singers? Like, how well do you think that would actually work out at the end of the day? Probably piss poor. What happens if everybody in the band wants to be the lead singer? So I will be curious to see what's going to happen with Meta because they've hired a lot of big names. They've hired a lot of big names in the AI sphere. One of the reasons they are big names is because of self-promotion and the whole 9 yards. What happens when you bring all of them into this one container of Meta AI? How well does that actually work at the end of the day? Right? I think about this. Like I know startup founders or whatever. They're like, yeah, my entire team is rock stars. Like, oh, I'm sorry for you. That must suck. So another thing for you to ponder. Then how do you figure out that org chart? How do you figure out how to give people appropriate titles? Right? If you have rock stars come in, and then somebody's sitting down having a cup of coffee with a rock star, and they're like, "Oh, you're part of that new Meta Superintelligence division." Yeah, I just got hired. Blah blah blah. Oh, so you work for, right? Mark Zuckerberg pays this guy $200 million. He's sitting there having a coffee one day, and the person's like, "Oh, I know who you work for. and then says like somebody else's name, motherfucker, I don't work for them. Anyways, curious things to ponder. Curious things to ponder. So what do you think about this with Meta's new org chart shuffle? What do you think about this with your IT departments, right? Beyond LLMs, beyond RAG, beyond Supabase and that type of thing, are you looking at redesigning your org chart for the AI stack? And how many rock stars should one tech department actually have? Put your thoughts down below. Now, if you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you don't, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a moron. Just do it down in the comment section because it is YouTube and all that matters in the YouTube world is that interaction. With that, see y'all later.